why, Demetrius, said to Nero, you threaten me with death, but it is nature who threatens you. The beginning of philosophy is to know the condition of one's own mind. If a man recognizes that this is in a weakly state, he will not then want to apply it to questions of the greatest moment, as it is men who are not fit to swallow even a morsel, buy whole treatises and try to devour them. Accordingly, they either vomit them up again or suffer from indigestion, whence come gripings, fluxions, and fevers, whereas they should have stopped to consider their capacity. In theory, it is easy to convince an ignorant person. In actual life, men not only object to offer themselves to be convinced, but hate the man who has convinced them. Whereas Socrates used to say that we should never lead a life not subjected to examination. This is the reason why Socrates, when reminded that he should prepare for his trial, answered, thinkest thou not that I have been preparing for it all my life? In what way? I have maintained that which in me lay. How so? I had never secretly, openly done wrong unto any. In what character dost thou now come forward? Is a witness summoned by God. Come thou, saith God, and testify for me, for thou art worthy of being brought forward as a witness by me. Is aught that is outside thy will either good or bad? Do I hurt any man? Have I placed the good of each in the power of any other than himself? What witness dost thou bear to God? I am in evil state, master, I am undone. None careth for me, none giveth me aught. All men blame, all speak evil of me. Is this the witness thou wilt bear in due dishonour to the calling wherewith he hath called thee? Because he hath done thee so great honour, and deemed thee worthy of being summoned to bear witness in so great a cause? Wouldst thou have men speak good of thee? Speak good of them. And when thou hast learned to speak good of them, try to do good unto them, and thus thou wilt reap in return their speaking good of thee. When thou goest in to any of the great, remember that another from above sees what is passing, and that thou shouldest please him rather than man. He therefore asks thee, in the schools, what didst thou call exile, imprisonment, bonds, death, and shame? I call them different things, and I called them things indifferent. What then dost thou call them now? Are they at all changed? No. It is then thou that art changed? No. Say then, what are things indifferent? Things that are not in our power. Say then what follows, that things which are not in our power are nothing to me. Say also what things you hold to be good, a will such as it ought to be, and a right use of the things of sense. And what is the end? To follow thee. That Socrates should ever have been so treated by the Athenians, slave. Why say Socrates? Speak of the thing as it is. That ever then the poor body of Socrates should have been dragged away and haled by main force to prison. That ever hemlock should have been given to the body of Socrates. That should have breathed its life away. Do you marvel at this? Do you hold this unjust? Is it for this that you accuse God? Had Socrates no compensation for this? Where then for him was the ideal good? Whom shall we hearken to, you or him? And what says he? Anytus and Miletus may put me to death, to injure me is beyond their power. And again, if such be the will of God, so let it be. Nay, young man, for heaven's sake, but once thou hast heard these words, go home and say to thyself, it is not Epictetus that has told me these things, how indeed he... No, it is some gracious God through him, else it would never have entered his head to tell me them. He that is not used to speak to any one thus, well then, let us not lie under the wrath of God, but be obedient unto him. Nay, indeed, but if a raven by its croaking bears thee any sign, it is not the raven, but God that sends the sign through the raven. And if he signifies anything to thee through human voice, will he not cause the man to say these words to thee, that thou mayest know the power of the divine? How he sends a sign to some in one way, and to others in another, and on the greatest and highest matters of all signifies his will through the noblest messenger. What else does the poet mean? I spake unto him erst myself, and sent Hermes in the shining one to check and
sources. You claim to believe in a certain book. That book goes against what you're saying. This is why, and this is how, and this is where. They are unable to respond. Okay? That is an issue. Because if you tell me there is an issue with my belief,
warn him, the husband not to slay, nor woo the wife. In the same way, my friend Heraclitus, who had a trifling suit about a petty farm at Rhodes, first showed the judges that his cause was just, and then at the finish cried, I will not entreat you, nor do I care what sentence you pass. It is you who are on your trial, not I. And so he ended the case. As for us, we behave like a herd of deer. When they flee from the huntsman's feathers in affright, which way do they turn? What haven of safety do they make for? Why, they rush upon the nets. Thus they perish by confounding what they should fear with that wherein no danger lies, not death or pain.
Gentlemen,
start your own little podcast. I'll be over, dude. I love your roots. Your roots are awesome. You should create your own channel. And yeah.
so
Is
Evital,
live right now in your podcast?
yeah, you're live on X, you're live on YouTube, you're live on yeah, just YouTube and X. There's people requesting to speak.
Does anyone even look at your podcast?
I mean, no.
So then what's the point?
What's the point of doing what you do, but not putting it out there on other platforms?
You could be our technical guy, like you could be the guy who's putting all the stuff out.
Yeah, I am that
You're
guy.
making all the money and I won't be making the money.
Well, welcome back to your life. You repeat yourself over and over and over.
Oh yeah, you know what we can do is like you can go live, I can go live. So whoever makes more money, right? That makes more sense.
It's a competition. Who can actually achieve monetization through Clownhouse content? I mean, for fuck's sake, the app has partnerships with government agencies and real-time bidding exchanges. I'm a nobody, and everybody is on this app with road rage. That's the good news of the gospel, which is you can go through life and you can go through room to room to room and not have what people call road rage, which is a diastolic, hardening of the arteries, and your blood pressure going up, and getting obese and getting diabetes, and not voting Trump and getting fat. So go to the gym and vote Kennedy and vote Vance and vote Trump.
Okay, man. All right. Where's Infinity? He was supposed to be here. What happened?
Is to be feared, but the fear of death or pain. Well said the poet, therefore, death has no terror, only a death of shame. How is it then that certain external things are said to be natural, and others contrary to nature? Why, just as it might be said if we stood alone and apart from others, a foot, for instance, I will allow it is natural should be clean, but if you take it as a foot, and as a thing which does not stand by itself, it will beseem it, if need be, to walk in the mud, to tread on thorns, and sometimes even to be cut off, for the benefit of the whole body. Else it is no longer a foot. In some such way we should conceive of ourselves also. What art thou, a man? Looked at as standing by thyself and separate, it is natural for the...
Hey, brother, guess what? We don't need the whites to accept us over here.
Nah, man, you'll
To have our own.
You'll never be
We could just collect it by just being simply Americans. We don't need Africans.
The whites will never accept you. I'm reminding you.
Trying to get accepted by white. What are you talking about?
I say we kill the whites and the blacks in Africa.
You will
I don't know about that, but
The white will never accept your Negro ass, man. You're always gonna be a slave in their eyes, man. You're always gonna be the attacker. You're always gonna be the shit that.
You know, a female or male, then people can accept it, even if they don't like it. You know, then they're like, okay, it sucks, it's not my cup of tea, or whatever. But that's even more corrosive when you have the double standard. That's even worse than having a bad standard, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about moral consistency. And the thing is, once they don't apply this consistency, which they haven't been doing this for years. The thing is, many of us have known about this, but because we're now seeing it, and Tommy Robinson largely has helped in that regard, and now with Keir Starmer in charge, he's blatant in front of everyone's eyes. No one can, it's at a point where no one can deny it anymore, apart from those on the radical far left. Who was still denying, they'll deny everything, so anything and everything. So yeah.
Looking at some stuff regarding the Judea Samaria stuff. Sorry, Henry, Matthew, go ahead.
I just want to say that if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. The saying holds true to this. One of the things I've noticed in going through a lot of the situations I have since I've been back stateside, and of course it's not recent, I've been here for, anyways, the whole point is, I've noticed a lot of the laws and rules that we have are not even being upheld that we have, so they're creating new ones. And what comes to mind is as we get more and more of these laws made, or their double standards, because, that wasn't upheld, so let's make a new one to reiterate it, and it expounds on it a little more, touches it a little differently. What happens when they start upholding all of these laws? What's going to be the impact when suddenly all the laws they weren't